Professor Huo, let me come to you first. What do you think are the factors that have driven China's express industry to grow so fast?
Well, this is an increasing return to scale at the current stage. So the cost of productions, all the cost of transportation is declining. The urban rate is still at 56%, which means that a lot of unemployed rural workers. And also, internet shopping is just the beginning of the Chinese life. So everything is looking good. It's an increasing return to scale.
Mr. Clark, how do you compare the development of the Chinese express industry with foreign countries? We know some 10 years ago, for instance, Europe, let's say Finland, was leading the pack. And how come they've fallen behind and China seemed to have overtaken everybody?
Well, I think as the professor just said, the e-commerce market in China is growing faster than anybody had forecast. And actually, more Chinese shop online than their American equivalents or UK equivalents, which had been the high water mark before. So it's really e-commerce leading the way. I wrote a book on Alibaba and I talk about this, the iron triangle, as Jack Ma calls it, between logistics, finance, and shopping. These three things together drive each other forward. So it is this incredible habit now of buying everything online, including also food delivery as well as products.
Yeah, Mr. Bastin, now in the past, express delivery was related to postal services, while now, as we have heard from these gentlemen, it's almost always combined with e-commerce. How do you look at the change, and what role do you think e-commerce have played on boosting the express delivery market?
Well, obviously, it's got a lot to do with e-commerce. I mean, the express parcels market has grown proportionally with e-commerce, and as the other panelists have said, that there's been an explosion in that, with Chinese consumers now shopping online more and for more and more variety of goods. I think there's a trust in e-commerce and an emotional connection there that the Chinese consumer has found that we haven't seen in America as much, and certainly in Europe. And I think that explains what we're seeing now. And obviously, the logistics industry, the supply chain industries really need to catch up, and those players in the market now really need to look very, very carefully at their entire operation, and supply chain management is really very, very important.
Mr. Huo, what do you think of the trust factor that Mike just mentioned? Do you find it the reason why that a lot of Chinese people love shopping online and they almost stay at home and without leaving their home and just shopping online? What do you think of that?
Well, I do shopping online, but I do enjoy seeing the window shopping, so to speak. So I'm not really dedicated to internet shopping, but I find it's very, very convenient, especially 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when I really couldn't fall asleep. And I also realized that when I make a purchase at that moment, and then maybe in the noon at the same day, I could receive whatever I have ordered. That's really a surprise in my life.
And you don't even have to get dressed properly, get ready to walk out, and spend time on the subway and the traffic jam and all of that. So
well, I do have to dress properly to accept to take in the commodities.
Well, a lot of people accept the deliveries in their pajamas. I think that,
I'm not to that stage yet, but I do enjoy the speed of shopping. I always said the fastest speed is the speed of light. But I'm thinking that the internet shopping in China is going to surpass the law of the speed of light.
Well, Mr. Clark, now the Chinese Prime Minister Li Keqiang pointed out that express delivery is a representative of or an example of the new economy, and it has stimulated consumption as well as promoting production. Why is express delivery regarded as a new business model? What do you think of that?
Well, a part of delivery is the packages, but it's also the data and all the intelligence coming from all of these deliveries, which is the same also for all the online payments that are involved. So stimulating all this data as well is a big part of the equation. So this is increasingly we will look to in the future robotics and things like that, but for the time being we do have a surplus of labor. That will dry up, but this, with data as the underpinning, we will be in a better position, I think, to move to robotic delivery in the future.
Mr. Bastin, now in 2016, the total revenue of online sales supported by express delivery reached more than 4 trillion yuan, or $580 million US dollars. That's about 12.5% of the total social consumption of retail goods. How are the Chinese traditional retailers coping with the new competition in your observation?
Well, I think they're trying to react very, very quickly. I think it has taken them by storm to a certain extent, and there are a lot of new players with low barriers to entry that have taken the market by storm, so that they're trying to reposition themselves and position themselves more online. But there's a lot to do, and I think that the key now is really getting that logistics operation, tight integrated supply chains that cover a vast geographical region across the China mainland, that the new players really have cornered the market with. So it's a very, very interesting time. We will see a shakeout in the market, and we will see a lot of I mean, there are 19,000 courier companies at the moment in China. We'll see far fewer dominate. The major traditional retailers really will need to look to work very closely with them and form long-lasting partnerships. Just to echo a point made previously, I talked about trust. I think it is the need for convenience as well that really is a typically Chinese thing with very, very densely populated urban environments. That need for convenience is driving this much more than it is, say, across Europe.
Well, do you think that the change in people's consumption behavior or shopping behavior can change the look and feel of high streets as we know them? Will you envisage a day when you no longer have bricks and mortar stores?
That's a very good point, and that's a point that's been pondered here in the Western Europe as well. I don't think we'll see a complete replacement. I think we'll see the two working together. Obviously, as shopping online becomes more sophisticated, and as the professor in the jury just said, there's a certain amount of enjoyment that goes with that. That is a threat to the traditional retail environment, the bricks and mortar that consumers across all cultures enjoy very much, hedonistic shopping. I think that will continue, particularly for luxury products where there's a real need to be in the store and really experience and get some advice. But I think the two can coexist. But online shopping, I think, will continue to increase.
Professor Huo, now, what do you think is the biggest downside of the boom of online shopping?
Well, it could be a bubble.
A bubble.
Especially when this everything looks so good, so marvelous. As I said, it's increasing to scale. But remember, it's impossible for every industry, or even this online shopping industry, courier industries, PP, always increasing return scale. That's just unlikely. So whenever people are overzealous, over enthusiastic about this business, then everybody, well, VCs, venture capital, will pour in, and then we'll probably see. I don't want to see bubbles happen over there. Now, of course, whenever we have an unmanned aerial vehicle appeared in that industry, for instance, in the United States, has already done that, and then I will conclude that increasing return scale probably is ended. Now, of course, that go back to the normal case. But before that, bubbles is probably the worst things I can imagine.
Mr. Clark, what is your opinion on this? What could be the most important downside of this?
Well, the professor's right to point out there's probably too much capital actually flooding around China and also the technology industry globally. But I do think that consumer habits have changed for all the reasons we've heard. We're not going to go backwards, I think. Offline commerce in China wasn't actually that efficient before, or even that prized by consumers. So the question is, where are we going to from here? What kind of services as well as products are we going to be buying online? And are there new ways of delivering them, in fact, more environmentally responsibly for those products as well? So there are going to be challenges from the sheer scale of this. Already 1 out of 8 users are using this every day. That's a huge number in the Chinese population.
Mr. Bastin, your take on this?
I think certainly there are ethical concerns, and sustainability very much is at the fore here. Overconsumption, depletion of natural resources. There's a real fanaticism now when it comes to online shopping, and there's a real danger that overconsumption can really put pressure on the sustainability of the industry and general pressure on the Chinese economy when there is a real question mark against ethics and sustainability and preservation of natural resources. So I think that needs to be looked at.
Well, what do you think of this environmental aspect of this, Professor Huo? I don't know whether you have ever noticed that, for instance, when you are shopping online, the packaging is particularly solid, meaning, you know, extra layers of packaging, and everything you buy comes with a packaging. And because you buy so much, there is also so much packaging that's been used and thrown away. Is environmental pollution a potential concern for you?
A question for me?
Yes, Professor Huo.
Okay. Oh, yes, I did. I did notice that. Whenever I order something, I always throw away more than I get.
Yeah.
That's a rule. That's a rule. I hate it.
But some people are saying that the more you consume in the packaging industry, the more you generate for recycling.
We will reflect on that. I don't think people are that dumb. People are like me. When I've taken little and throw out more, that's not right. That's not something that need to be corrected.
Okay, the other two gentlemen, Mr. Clark, maybe a very quick concluding remark.
Yes, I think that the customer is king in China today, and people would rather not have damaged packages. You know, but this needs to change, because particularly the plastic tape, which is used to seal this stuff, is not recyclable. But there is a commitment to get to at least half of recyclable goods within the next few years. But we have to move towards recycling quickly.
Yes. Mr. Bastin, your thoughts very quickly.
I think an acceptance across the Chinese public that more and more packaging doesn't necessarily make the gift more and more attractive. You don't need to double the size of the packaging to double the perception of benefit to the recipient. Oh, for functional reasons, yes, but the emotional aspect of packaging, I think, again, is a very Chinese thing, where we see packaging that's ridiculously over the top, and that really is environmentally damaging and a cause for concern.